Hello everyone, and welcome to the panel on Future of Enterprise Networking. Let me bring out my panelists. Nabil Bitar, CTO Office Head of Network Architecture from Bloomberg. Raleigh Mann, Senior Vice President of Technology, Sonoma. Neal Secher, Vice President, Head of Network Services from TD Bank. And Dan Snyder, Chief Principal Architect from UPMC. Welcome, gents. So I'm really excited to have this gentleman here with me because they're the founding members of the Enterprise Leadership Council that we started last year around the same time. And we made a tremendous amount of progress. As you've heard during the sessions this morning, Nan talked about it, Kevin talked about it, and all the work that's already out there with the help of these gentlemen and the entire Enterprise Leadership Council. So we are here to talk about the future of enterprise networking, so let's get right into it. You support and maintain and manage network that's critical to your core business. Everything that the core business relies on to keep the lights on, to expand into new territories, it all relies on network, even to differentiate maybe. It relies on the new business. So the choices you make, the technologies that you adopt has a critical impact on how that manifests itself into the core business capability. So with that in mind, I want to talk about, and during this discussion, I want to suss out how you manage that in terms of new trends. How do you adopt the new trends? How do you make those decisions? And how do you balance that with the normal day-to-day stuff that just has to get done, the router upgrades, the switch upgrades, and so on and so forth. So let's talk about NaaS. Last year at this time, you talked about the fact that you like the focus on automation, the service agility, but you found that the offers were spotty. Have things changed in your mind? How has things developed? Have you adopted NaaS? Are you on your way to adopt NaaS? So maybe Neal, let's start with you.
Oh, I get to go first. Okay.
Yes.
So I think part of it is defining what is NaaS, right? Or what is NaaS to me? And so I'm very, very interested in consumption models. So I think that was a good point that Dave raised before. And so, where we have taken networks and abstracted them through controllers and things like that, and all the APIs that we're talking about, enabling kind of more service agility between what we're doing in the enterprise and what we're doing, with like services we consume, like telecom services. I think that's continuing to build. But personally, I think when we make technology, at least at TD, when we make our technology selections, we are not wanting to be intermediated away from that. And so for like SD-WAN, for instance, that's something that I want to go. We're going to do a proof of concept. We're going to test all these things out. We're going to build a relationship with that provider, and I want to make sure that I'm on their advisory board and our features are going to be prioritized and those type of things. So I think to each enterprise, their level of what they would opt into for NaaS would be different. But that's just kind of my perspective.
And can you talk a little bit about, you've been an early adopter of SD-WAN, and
Yep.
You're already on your 4th iteration of SD-WAN. So how has that been, and why the 4th iteration?
So we were very, very early SD-WAN customers, kind of when the technology first came out. I think SD-WAN makes a lot of sense. I think it's very easy to run. I don't see this, it doesn't keep me awake at night trying to figure out how am I going to run the SD-WAN network. It is a lot easier to run than all the traditional networks that we have, maybe in the data center or things like that, where we're kind of managing box by box. And I'll just give you a for instance. I mean, this year we, through technology lifecycle, swapped out one SD-WAN provider or platform for another in our US retail footprint, which is about 1,100 stores. We did that in about 5 months. We wrote a lot of the automation ourselves. That included a transport cutover. We kept local tail circuits, but we cut over from MPLS to a broadband service. And we were largely able to do that in a really short amount of time. And the technology really is what's there to do that. And with the each iteration, we added security and more analytics and more ability to steer traffic directly to cloud versus kind of bringing it back through our data centers and kind of knitting that through. So the technology just kind of keeps getting better, and I do think that it makes sense, or at least what we do a lot is to, at each one of those decision points, to kind of canvas and see what's out there. Am I still in the best spot? Should I evaluate something differently? And frankly, a lot of options get put on the table in those early stages of analysis, and then we take it to the lab and go.
Excellent. Nabil, you talked about the fact that you like the flexibility and again, the automation, but when you talked about how you could take modular pieces of NaaS and consider adopting not the full thing, but maybe modular pieces of NaaS. Have you done some of that? Sure. You can talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to piggyback on what Neal said, NaaS could encompass a lot of things. Mm-hmm. You could consume many things in the network as a service, but in general, it's really about what you expose to be consumed as a service via the NaaS paradigm. So from that point of view, I think there are few things that we look for and we execute on. So as either it's in the network, how you expose services to our internal, teams to consume network services. That's one of the things that usually enterprise look at, not necessarily to piggyback on what we do, only what we could be doing. The other thing we have to remember also, people are moving to cloud, and the question is that not everybody is a network expert. So how you make that also, whether it's how you tie your services on the prem to what you're doing on the cloud, or how you do it on the cloud as well. How do you abstract that away, if you will, from application teams that do not know necessarily every single piece of the network terminology and the network construct that exists in every single cloud to be able to construct that network. So one could think that these things could be exposed also as a service via the NaaS paradigm, if you want to put it that way, and that's the key. I think the other possibility, I guess what Dave was talking about, also to expose network, whether at different dimensions, I think those things could be coming as a function of time that everybody needs to look at, meaning whether you're having EVPL circuit that you're trying to get from the enterprise. This has existed for a while. Now you're talking about wavelength on demand, other type of connectivity. These things are also on the table to be considered as a function of time.
Raleigh, you were skeptical last year, and you liked that concept, but again, it was you found the capability spotty. But then you embarked on, SASE and looking at what's out in the market and looking at possibly adopting SASE. How has that journey been? What has been your experience? Where are you in that journey?
Sure. Similar to Neal, we're on a life cycle change. We have SD-WAN to our retail branches, and it's time for a refresh. So I thought, let me take a look out there. And like many people traditionally, we backhaul all of that traffic to my data centers. Yeah. Send it through firewalls and go out to the internet, and that hairpinning, or as Dave said earlier, that trombone of traffic is really painful, right? Because we increased all the circuits to all the stores, but the latency is visible to humans, right? They're used to surfing at home, and so when they're traversing the country twice to get back and forth, it doesn't seem much faster. Bandwidth doesn't help when latency is so multiplied. So I thought it'd be great to have a single product that's both SD-WAN and SASE. Many vendors have both, but few have one, right? They'll sell you an SD-WAN product and a companion SASE product, which means I still have two management planes, two control planes, two policy engines, and that's not what I'm looking for, right? I really want unified. So it actually caused me to question the whole journey, right? Should we just stick with the thing that we've got, and I can change from backhauling all the way across country to create some smaller POPs to egress more locally in a metro more centrally located for folks, for our branches that are in the middle of the country. So
sort of like a hybrid approach.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But now we're going into a POC with a unified product.
Okay.
We will see how it does, and it has a single management and control plane.
Excellent to hear.
I'm a little eager to see it in action and really relieve some of the user complaints we're getting.
Excellent. Good. Then I know that you at UPMC, you have a lot of capability and a great team to do most of it internally. You have your own management plane and everything. You manage and control everything together. Have you considered NaaS for different offerings in terms of maybe connecting, not entirely, but like Nabil was saying earlier, maybe modules of it? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I definitely think modules of NaaS make sense. Like, I guess, for example, like with MEF opening up the APIs to order circuits, and to see that today, like today we get emails from each ISP that has a spreadsheet and tells you this is the different bandwidth options and this is the prices tied to it. And to actually automate that would be actually a lot of time saving for us.
Okay, so let's stay on automation. That's a great segue into APIs and automation. There's a lot of focus, as you heard. MEF has a huge framework of LSO automation. We've introduced the enterprise APIs for quote order billing, but also you can use APIs for fault management, performance monitoring. And now we've done, thanks to your efforts, we've now introduced the circuit impairment and maintenance API. Can you talk about how much of those are you using or considering to use? How useful will they be? And of course, also the SIM service.
I mean, definitely the quoting, ordering, and then the SIM service, because today that's also emails. Like we get emails in different formats from carriers if there's any type of maintenance or issue, and that's also it's not user friendly for us.
Why is that?
Well, because who got the email? Like sometimes, like actually, it's not even the same person gets the email every time. Like we have a network operations center that's 24/7. We care about, even most of our sites have redundant circuits, so we actually care if the primary circuit goes down or the backup circuit goes down. It happens all the time, but it's not consistent where those emails go. It could be old contact information. Mm-hmm. I mean, the same thing happens with like ARIN. Like if your company's not on top of maintaining your ARIN records, they can get out of date really quick. And
got it. And so, Nabil, I know that you and your team were very involved in the circuit impairment and maintenance MVP that we have. But also there's a lot of focus on automation that you have. Can you talk a little bit about that? And specifically in the context of the MEF APIs that we've released, what's the adoption like? How much more are you looking to do?
So as you said, one of the initiatives that we initiated collectively as an ELC was initially focused on the SIM. Before that, there was work done at MEF related to other business aspects.
That's right.
As well, for these APIs. So I'll start with the SIM part, which is circuit impairment and maintenance notification, just to call it out. I think it's very important because today, I think as many as Dan has said, and yesterday we said the same thing, things are processed or are generated via emails, wait for humans to look at, generate tickets as a result of that, and you could imagine the fallouts and the lack of timely delivery, if you will, of alerts that could come about from that, right? Having APIs that you could build system to consume and act on them, whether generating alerts or take other actions to preemptive for things that could happen, ensuring that when that maintenance takes place, that there is alternative path to create for the traffic is very important. The other part of that is the impairment part.
Sure.
Most of the time, if not all the time, today you have really a lack of visibility of what could have happened in the middle if you have somebody transporting your traffic. So if you're trying to troubleshoot the problem to say where it happened, it takes quite a bit. Knowing that this could be the cause of the problem is a big benefit to really reduce the time to detect, if you will, or to identify the root cause as well, develop remediation around that if need be. So this is one of the focus areas. Now, other sides related to the business side of it, I mean, whether course or things like that, I think the prime focus will be usually is to really create bandwidth or update bandwidth as you need. That's what I would say, and when you need it, because preceding that there has to be physical connectivity that has to be established, and that usually takes time. And those kind of like codes and stuff like that will be done at that time, if you want to put it that way. But I think reacting to bandwidth need could be very beneficial in multiple places. And we have to remember that we had traditionally in general, like in the industry, we connect sites to service, to a private backbone, whatever it is the case, but there is now connectivity to the cloud as well. So the physical site have been transformed into virtual sites, and there is need for that as well. And that kind of traffic path, if you will, the amount of traffic is sometimes variant as a function of time, could go up, could go down. So it allows you that possibility to really react to that, if you will, in more timely fashion that fits the business needs as well.
Good. Raleigh, can you talk about what platform you're using today, and how you plan to integrate the SIM service?
Oh, sure. My team uses an ITSM product called ServiceNow for ticketing.
Yeah.
We actually have created quite a bit of automation based on tickets. So if a store goes down or a ticket gets raised manually, automatic through monitoring, or manually because somebody calls in to say they have an issue, it automatically kicks off a triage automation test that goes through and tests most things that our level 1 NOC would manually do. So for us, we'll just ingest the SIM notifications straight into that.
Okay.
It's obviously my CMDB. It has all my circuit information, everything else in it. So I'll be able to match the circuit IDs to the location. I can send out preemptive notifications. There's a difference if the store is open versus closed, whether it has an active secondary circuit or not. I can have all of that triggered and automatically checked. And if we have to take manual intervention, we know not to spend time figuring out, did the site lose power?
Yeah.
Is that why the circuit's down, right? Can we reach the CPE through the secondary circuit, those sorts of things? Cuts through all that noise. So we'll be ingesting it directly into our tickets. No more emails. That's just terrible.
Yeah.
I said it yesterday, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it until I die. Email should never be part of workflow. It's not built for that.
That's right. Especially how critical your infrastructure is. You just can't rely on that.
Look, every business, whether they're our size or a small shop, you can't really operate business without a network. So it really comes down to how quickly can you, what's your mean time to repair, resolve, or mitigate? Pick one, but something's got to happen, and it's got to happen quick. And having the information of what you're dealing with is the big part of the first step.
Excellent. So let's transition to AI. There's AI for networks to help you, and the promise is to help you, really manage your networks really well, design them well. There's a big promise in that. And then there is networks for AI. In other words, even if you find, the capability of AI ops for your management of your core infrastructure spotty or still up and coming, your core business is looking to adopt AI in some way, shape, or and as they do that, how are you gearing up for building that network infrastructure for AI? So let's start there, and then we'll go back to the AI ops. So Neal, you want to talk about that?
Yeah. We did a press release a couple months ago about our initial kind of AI use cases, and largely that has been assistive technology for contact center agents to better service our customers. And to do that, I'm sure that every company has reams and reams of procedure documents and things like that that customers need to know about, and they can't find that information and they need help, right? And so being able to kind of chunk through that data with AI has been extraordinarily useful for that sort of contact center agent. Now, I think this is, largely a crawl, walk, run type of approach. It's very safe data. We're not, exposing PII kind of stuff. It's really procedure documents that we are training in public cloud, for that use case. I do think, and so we're looking at that, right? And we're kind of looking and thinking, well, what's next? What are the next use cases? And to be very clear, there's a set of use cases, a million miles long of things that people want to do. And there's also, no offense, but there's like a whole lot of whitewashing of everything in AI, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot, as we, look at solutions that are maybe even targeted more towards our business than to IT operations in general. It's kind of like, well, is this really AI? What are you selling us here? And there's a whole lot of work that's involved, and we're trying to keep a really tight funnel. Because we just, it's just a massive amount of things to consume and really understand, what's under the covers here, and is that going to expose us to anything? From a networking perspective, this has become a huge multi-cloud journey, right? Before we were actually hosting our own services in multi-cloud, in multiple clouds, the network team would have thought we were multi-cloud already because you're connected to everybody. And we're seeing lots of interesting traffic patterns emerge where data is coming out of this SaaS and being punted into this service that we're hosting in a cloud, like our own public cloud. It's just creating a really interesting network effect that, much like we were talking about kind of on the retail side, not wanting to hairpin traffic through the data centers, we now are needing much more mature cloud-to-cloud connectivity. With all of the security aspects built in, and analytics and telemetry, and sort of all of that. So it's gotten kind of quite complex. And I would also maybe just, because I could probably talk about this for 3 hours. But maybe the last thing I'll say is, we are not, we are also, let me say it in a positive way, we are also considering, when is the right time to pull some of this stuff on-prem, right? But we also need to kind of look at the very real limits of our data centers as they are today. And so, with cloud migrations that started 5, 6, 7 years ago, our size of data centers has pared down. And so when we need to, when someone wants to roll in a bunch of NVIDIA, clusters and things like that, we just simply do not have the power available to power that thing or cool it. And so there are physical limitations on kind of what we can do in our own data centers. And my guess is, this is Neal's opinion, not sort of anybody else, not TD's opinion, is we're going to need something in the middle. A kind of like metal as a service option where we are leasing that capacity as opposed to buying it, because retrofitting our data centers would just be too expensive. So anyway, so a lot there. So.
Okay. So Dan, I know that like Neal mentioned, there's selectively they're looking at using public cloud, but what about healthcare? In healthcare, there's a lot of sensitive information. Yeah. Are you looking to leverage public cloud, or are you going to build your own? Are you going to do a mix of the two? What are you doing?
Yeah, so like in healthcare, we definitely see the benefits of AI. I guess our number one focus, though, is not to put UPMC's data at risk and to lose that data. So because of that, we have like an AI policy. We have a committee that reviews use cases for AI to make sure that we're not losing UPMC's data. Currently, I believe we are going to do a hybrid approach. Like we have a portfolio company that was called Abridge that did natural language processing between a doctor and the patient, and then structures that data in a way that it can be put into their clinical record and notes in real time. We also use natural language processing I was telling you last night, for refilling prescriptions. There's lots of benefits to that. And when we have projects for doing AI with digital pathology across the state of Pennsylvania. So there's lots of use cases. It's just mainly protecting the data. But I do think it will be a hybrid approach between on-prem and some cloud use.
Got it. Nabil, are you able to, as you consider, I'm sure you're considering, again, a hybrid approach or maybe just on-prem approach. But as you do that, as you're gearing up to support AI workloads and do the training maybe in-house, are you even getting access to the GPUs? Are they all going to the hyperscalers? And how are you overall looking at it?
Right, so let me talk about overall rate, because I don't want to focus on a particular weight, just not to border something that's could be proprietary, right? So it's just to be transparent.
Fair enough.
And here I think there are obvious public things that we had already published and so forth, but let me talk about the generic problem. So everybody has something that's on-prem to train models, to make inference, and there are, I think it's very, very known that they'll have something on the cloud. We have something on the cloud. I think we published a couple of papers related to that as well. So the question now, what are the problems that you need to address from network point of view? And that's what I want to focus on. Obviously, within the prem, there is always network solutions that you have to think about related to the magnitude of the cluster on which you are running, with the main objective in here is to complete the time for training, for example, within a time that you designate, but more importantly, so that you could maximize the utilization of your GPUs where the biggest cost is. That's one problem that you have. So you have to look at the right network technology and then network architecture to satisfy that. The second problem relates to inference, which is, I think, many talks during this meeting. There has been talk about that, about the requirement for the latency, because that's interactive. The user or the application will make a request. You expect some response within a given time. So the location where you have to have that inference point in proximity to the user has to be definitely considered. And that's some area that's been evolving as we speak, right? About where that will happen, at what edges, and so forth. Then if you look at, if you are training in the cloud or you're returning models from the cloud, you talk about transfer data into the cloud and data back from the cloud. Whether you're doing inference or you're doing training or you're retrieving models, whatever it is. So what does that mean? It means now you have to worry about the network path and the bandwidth needed to accomplish that task, again, any time that you desire to be able to do that. Therefore, the bandwidth becomes important. Sometimes that bandwidth is not needed all the time. You don't do training every single hour, but you really do it at a particular period of time. During that time, you need the bandwidth to send data out and to get back models that you need to retrieve. So you have to think about how you provide for that. And it goes back to our bandwidth on-demand model, if you will, that we talked about in the context of NaaS as well, that you have to consider that. The last dimension, I would say, I think the team had, that Dan touched on, in particular talk about, I guess everybody has some kind of governance that goes about what you do, where you do it, what kind of things you do. That's kind of what he referred to. I think the important part in here is that, are there things that you need to do to be able to abide by these governance? That's something that I think in general needs to be thought about, and what will be enforced, those governance points. So.
Got it. Raleigh, what about you? How are you looking to use AI? Is the core business looking to use AI, and how are you gearing up for that? Are you going to use the public cloud?
Sure. Like most retailers, the most obvious first approach is chatbot, but beyond that, adding some AI with contextual understanding, natural language processing, not just where's my order, or I want to talk to somebody else. It's how can we help them remove the friction of finding a product that's going to delight them. So we have a very large catalog across all our brands, millions of products that we represent. We're using AI in many ways, mostly generative AI for copy and information about providing it, because when you publish a catalog, you only have a few things that you have to write up on, but when you publish it online, you have to describe everything, right? So that's a lot of work, and Gen AI helps us there.
And all this you're doing in public cloud, or?
We're doing it a mix, both on-prem and public cloud.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm fine with public cloud for these kinds of use cases.
Right. I'm
very sensitive about PII. Sure. Public cloud, third-party access, massive scalers. If I'm going to lose my job, it's because I did something wrong, not because I assumed a partner would do the right thing.
Got it. Okay, we don't have enough time to get into the AI ops, but I do think it's important for everyone to understand we are 1 year, you gentlemen are 1 year into the participating in the Enterprise Leadership Council at MEF. Can you talk very quickly about how the experience has been and how you intend to use the MEF platform if you will, for collaboration and driving key important initiatives for the future of enterprise networking?
So given the time, I'll summarize it into things.
Yeah, I love it.
I think we one is we'd like to get to a place where we find common use cases that help us operate our network in more agile and more streamlined fashion to reduce the time to insights about the root cause and the problem remediation. That's number one. Number two, I think there could be uses for generative AI to really augment, and probably right-like approach to augment people's ability to operate the network. And I think that requires, if you're trying to talk about natural language processing, probably to require a corpus of things or data models that are tuned to the network rather than generic models, so that you increase your accuracy for these. Sure. I think it could be a benefit us as an industry to have these models to be able to leverage them for operations purposes.
Excellent. Raleigh?
So service providers and massive scalers exist to serve the enterprise. It seemed weird to not have enterprise at the table. I'm grateful that we were chosen, so I can both share our frustrations and pain points and hopefully get services crafted to resolve that, but at the same time learn from other enterprises that are facing similar but different challenges, or maybe coming at them in a novel way. This is a great place to do that, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to make a difference for everybody.
Yeah, and well said, and we are thankful for your participation. Neal?
Yeah, I think I'd echo Raleigh. Like, I think that the power of the community between the enterprises and service providers together, there's tremendous power there to make sure that solutions are appropriate for our consumption. I think that started in earnest. And really has a lot of runway to go. And I would just also say that some of the API development that has now shifted kind of left into the longer parts of the process, not service provisioning, but the ordering and all of that kind of stuff, also is kind of the fruits of the labor here.
Excellent. And Dan, finally.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a great collaboration between enterprises in general and not only service providers, but also the manufacturers, because MEF has representation from all those three, and so yeah, it's been great to collaborate with them and understand the viewpoint from the service provider, from the vendor, and then from different enterprises.
Excellent. Yeah, and there's more to be done. So that's great. Thank you so much for your insights. Thank you.